Skyrim with Robin Hood.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Card Culture Games' very first game review. I am Michael, and this is my esteemed colleague, Rachel.
Also known as Board Game Betty on Instagram.
Yes, and we'll have a link to follow her down in the description below. And we are reviewing Robin Hood and the Merry Men, made by Final Frontier Games. So, in this game, you might be wondering how many people to play. Well, it's 1 to 5, so you can play as a solo player if you're kind of lonely and like that kind of thing, or you can play with your friends and be social. So, we got options. But also, it takes about 60 to 90 minutes, depending on your experiences, and it could take even less time if all of you and the people playing don't work together, because this is a semi-co-op game. It's going to have some card drafting, as well as it's going to be a worker placement kind of deal as you place your merry men all around the board. The game is going to feature a few different ways to score points, and those points at the end are going to determine who wins. But I actually don't know the phases to this game, but I think Rachel does.
I do, Michael. There are 2 phases to the game. The first phase is your Merry Men phase, which is your initial worker placement phase. The second phase is your hero phase.
Awesome. Alright, so let's go ahead and dig into Robin Hood and the Merry Men. There are a lot of components, a very big, immersive, and interactive board to play on, and of course, some lovely artwork and miniatures to play with. So, let's go ahead and start first with your character card. On your character card, you're going to have your meeples, otherwise known as your Merry Men, traps, barricades, as well as once you play them, you'll have cards on each side of your player card which represent your active and your passive piles, which can mean different things, and we will get into that soon enough. So your first step is going to be picking your hero. So let's say that you're playing with this guy. Pretty cool miniature, right? These guys are all from Kickstarter, I believe. They're extra characters that were added in. So, you know, kudos to all you guys out there that helped raise some funds for this game. So the first thing you are going to be able to do in this game is the Merry Men phase, and then comes the hero phase, where you get to do more cool stuff. So in the Merry Men phase, it's the worker placement type, as well as combined with the card drafting mechanic. So these little meeple guys are your Merry Men, and you're going to place them on one of many areas all around the board to do certain things, either accumulate resources or points. So at different areas outside of the main town square are basically areas to assemble resources. Your resources in this game are going to be metal, distractions, which is really just booze, and tools, which are mainly just hammers. And by mainly, I mean 100% just hammers. So the iron is used to build things, the tools are used to build things, and the distraction tokens are used to pay off this drunk of a sheriff who will let you kill his guards if you just give him some alcohol. That's right, whenever you are in an area where the sheriff is as he moves quite frequently throughout the game, if you are in the same area as him and there are guards there that you want to kill, you must pay the sheriff a distraction token, which is just a bottle of alcohol again, in order to be able to kill his men. So he's so drunk the whole time that as long as you keep his drunkenness going, he is totally fine with all of the bloodshed happening to his own officers. So this is an example of a card that you will be able to play from your hand. So at any time you'll have 4 cards. That is the most you can have in your hand. Now you're going to want to play it either passive or active. Depending on where you play it, you can either use the ability or not. So if you play it actively, you use the ability, which is all this stuff in the corner. So all this stuff in the corner seems a little confusing to you, probably if you have not played this game. It was confusing to me, and that's one thing I want to knock them for. Because these symbols down here represent what you do with the card and what happens as it resolves. They give you a cheat sheet, but on this cheat sheet really doesn't describe anything that you would want to understand about what's going on that card. So instead, the last page of the rulebook, they actually have a really nice graphic which shows you all of the possible logos and symbols that you could be interacting with and what they mean. So you're going to want to refer to this page in the back of the rulebook if you are playing this game. It'll really help speed things up, as well as it'll give you some peace of mind and some clarity. So these are the character cards. This is an example. Here's Little John here. You have your special ability down at the bottom. Again, you're going to want to reference this page in the rulebook to understand what what the special ability does is this game refuses to use words, they just use pictures, because we're all children, I guess. What? But, anyways, other than the artwork and the special ability, your character card doesn't really mean much, and you really won't be using it or picking it up or doing anything with it throughout the game. So, let's go back to either passive or active. So if you're playing it passively, and it remains in your passive pile till the end of the game, if this has any points over here, for example, this guy is 0, so he's not worth any victory points, but if it had any, you would actually accumulate all of those points from the passive cards. Now the active cards, you get to use their ability. So for example, this guy's ability is that you can send an envoy for 1 less resource or weapon die, or you can build a barricade or a trap. So one of these guys. This is really the meat and potatoes of your character. Now the barricades are built using different resources depending on where you are and what cards you have to block certain points on these roads. Now, as you build barricades and traps, they'll come off, and then each turn you'll start getting certain resources. So for example, now you'll get a coin every turn, now you'll get a distraction token every turn to drink with the sheriff or make the sheriff drink. Eventually you get a weapons dice every turn, and then finally you get an extra meeple. And the same thing happens for the traps. You get lots of resources for building them, so it does pay to unlock all these extra resources, as it'll make the game much easier for you and give you definitely a leg up on your competition. So you're gonna see 4 roads to enter into the town. Each of the roads has coins, I believe 12, correct me if I'm wrong, coins on them to start the game, and each time the road is taxed, either by the prince, or because of this area over here, which I will explain in a second, you will encounter a tax. So the game itself is going to want to send as many carriages through as possible, so these roads are going to keep getting activated, so you and your friends / enemies, because this is a semi-co-op game, are going to want to build barricades to block off this road, and eventually at the end of the game you will score points for barricades and traps being built. Now traps you can place down on any of the markers inside of an area to trap a guard and take him back with you, and then you can exchange that trapped guard for resources at the end of the game, or you can just hold on to him like the sick bastard that you are. Now over here I talked about the carriages. So this is what they look like. All the miniatures in this game are very well done. Not the highest quality miniatures I've ever come across, but they are pretty nice. So whenever you rob a carriage successfully, which you need 2 of the same color weapon dice for, they come in 4 colors, you will put them in whatever column you want to, and then you'll get certain prizes for each of the columns. However, at the end of the game, or whenever a carriage makes it through, it'll go in the next available slot from the left. So let's say that 2 carriages were robbed. They go sideways. Now the carriages that make it through, they go upwards to represent the fact that they made it through and they weren't robbed. So what happens is these 3 coins come off of the road they made it in on. And if at any point the 12 coins on any of these roads deplete, you all actually lose. So it's very important to maintain control over the roads and over the carriages, and you want to really micromanage them, or otherwise you could get really in the ass. So you really, really don't want to do that. Oh yeah, and the coins. The coins are actual metal, and they are beautiful, glorious to touch. It is truly rewarding to get the coins in the early game until you realize how little they actually matter. Coins and currency in this game is not as important as some of the resources and some of the other things you can do. That being said, there are uses for coins, and you can always trade them in, but really, it's just better to just clink them around like as if you actually had real money. So the weapons dice, the weapons will come in 4 colors, and you'll see them pink, orange, teal, and brown. And they represent which carriages you can interact with. You need 2 of the same color to rob, and they also represent which weapons you can use on certain areas of the game board, as this one has pink and brown. So if you have pink and brown dice, you can kill guards in this area. If you have pink and teal, you can go to this area, and you only need 1 of that color, but you'll only be able to roll the color that you have. Now, there's also some dice rolling that'll happen either in the archery competition, or in the town square, or even for jail. So These dice are these black and white ones, and they will give you one of two results. You either get a hit or a miss. So when you're in the archery competition, you're just competing for fame, notoriety, and money. If there's money in the pile, there's a very common thing that happens in this game. Money goes very fast, so there might not be any money to win. Now, in the center of the map, you'll see the town square. This is the area where you can come and rob the rich. And if you do successfully rob the rich, you get to draw from this little bag. Again, really, really nice components with Robin Hood and the Merry Men. And you'll draw from the bag at random. And you'll get one of a few different things, and it'll either be coins, in this case iron, different resources that you can acquire from doing that. The rich have many things on them, and the bag always replenishes, so it's the same probability each time you draw. Now, the last place you can go to is jail. Now, you don't want to go to jail, but if you do happen to lose one of your merry men there, a hero, meaning yourself, or another player can go and rescue them. If you rescue another person's merry men, you actually do receive some victory points as well as notoriety. So it pays to help out your brethren and your sisters in this game by saving their merry men, although if they don't have merry men, there's less things that they can do, so that means that they're weaker. So you might be able to overtake them, but at the same time, if they are too weak, they won't be able to help you, and then the game will overtake you and you will all lose. So you want to balance all that with Robin Hood and the Merry Men as much as you can. As you can see, very, very interactive, very, very immersive. And one last thing, the rulebook itself is quite beautiful. I do love the artwork in here. You'll see plenty of artwork neatly put all in this book. It's one of the nicer ones that I have come across personally. Alright, so what are your first impressions of the game?
Very fun, honestly. Like coming from like a really casual board game player, the first time player too, I did think it was a little complicated in the beginning just because they used a lot of symbols to describe things or certain events. So we had to do a lot of cross-referencing to make sure we knew what we were supposed to do in each step, but once we were like through one or two rounds, everyone pretty much got the hang of it. It was a lot of fun, absolutely. Yeah. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of rules that we had to keep going into the rulebook again to look at what the cards said, because there wasn't enough information on them. It's definitely a game that's made for folk who play it a lot over and over again to actually get what everything means without the rulebook. It was longer than I thought it would be, and there's more games out there that this borrows heavily from. The Champions of Midgard one, Architects of the Western Kingdom. They take a lot of elements from that and just mash it into one game. So it's a lot of rules for one game. So I just thought that was, they could streamline it more. Sure, I thought.
Yeah. Rachel?
I definitely think I agree with them. It has a clunkier aspect. I think it's definitely suited for lower player counts. But I love the components of the game. I love the recessed boards. The dice are super pretty. The meeples are awesome. Everybody loves a good meeple. The art is great. And I think Matt really likes the art as well.
The artwork is done by the Miko. He's actually done art for Architects of the West Kingdom and Raiders of the North Sea by Renegade Games. Really popular artist, really beautiful, great artwork on the boards and on the cards. So
Yeah, the artwork in this game is crisp, refreshing, and it's good to look at. The overall theme of the game is obviously established. It's clear, it's concise, it's Robin Hood, people. The game itself, I thought, was pretty enjoyable. It was clunky at times, as some people have said already. A lot of rules to remember and read. This is definitely one that when you play it again in the future, it'll be a lot easier, smoother, and it'll just be a better game to play.
It was a hard game though.
Yes, having newer players,
you.
it does trip you up. You don't really know what's going to happen in the end as far as scoring goes and what's important. That surcharge for the taxes on the carriages, we had no clue that would happen. We were too busy robbing the rich. That is a great component of this game, by the way. Who doesn't love robbing the rich?
Exactly. Fuck imperialism.
This is definitely, in my opinion, this is more of a gamer's game. You can sit down and you can learn how to play this in a couple rounds. But I mean, there's this at a minimal player count. This is only a 5-round game. So some of the mechanisms in this game are more built around like people who are more familiar with bigger types of games and like heavier mechanisms. I mean, it took several of us here have played mini games before, and it still took us 3 hours to get through. So
And it has a lot of mechanics. I mean, if you incorporate the dice rolling, the card drafting, the worker placement, the set collection, there is a lot to get through.
Yes, a lot to unlock.
Right, and that's also one thing I like about it though, because there's so many different ways to win the game. Like, even if you don't do so well in certain areas, you can still gain points in others.
But then on that though as well, like even if you do play well, there's a very high chance that you'll all lose because of the game playing against you. There's a lot of elements. There's 3 elements I thought that weren't really used well, like the prince and the sheriff. They weren't really anything that would hold us back. If the sheriff showed up somewhere, you could just go somewhere else because there was no limit to how many of your workers can sit in one place or in another place. So I felt that he was kind of not a lot of use. I felt the prince had more use because he could remove barricades off the roads. But the sheriff I thought was just something that they had to put in there, but wasn't really used.
For thematic purposes.
Yeah, I think going back to kind of the talking about the theme, I sort of wish that there was a little more direct interaction with the prince and the sheriff. You didn't ever battle the sheriff. You just kind of avoided him and paid resources to stay away from him and to keep your people out of jail.
Or you kept him boozed up.
If you had to go to where the sheriff was, it was easy to just negate his presence.
Yeah.
You use one of the bottles, which is all that was used for.
The sheriff's a drunk.
Is the sheriff, and then still fight the guards and still do all the actions on that
The
space.
sheriff doesn't care if you kill his guys, as long as he's drunk, right? Yeah. But overall, I think that I can speak for the group in the sense that we had a great time. I would just say one last thing before we go. Honestly, I think there are too many mechanics in this game for how large and how short the game actually is. For example, we actually never used our player specials just because there was so much going on, so much to micromanage between the sheriff, the prince, resource building, what to build, what to do, guards to kill, different people moving around the board, managing the game itself over the other players, trying to maintain your status quo of being ahead of the other players, at least in your own mind, since you don't know, since the scoring all happens at the end, pretty much. But overall, I'd say it was a great time. I'd say it was a fun game. It's a good worker placement, card drafting system, and I think it works pretty well. Would you guys agree?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
All right, well, this is Michael and friends, as well as Board Game Betty on Instagram. And this has been our review of Robin Hood and the Merry Men. Thanks for watching. Hope you drop a sub.
Bye.